Today is a very beautiful day in Japan, but we had a sudden shift in the weather, which reminded me of my home state of Maryland back in America, where the weather changes more than politicians change their political stances, which, trust me, is very impressive. It got me thinking about Japanese and how we can use Japanese to describe this sudden change in weather. But then I decided it's probably just a good idea to make a video on fall in general. So here we are. I will introduce some vocabulary that you don't hear from normal lessons, as well as some grammar points that will be very useful for conversational Japanese. Some of these are great examples of conversation starters too, so take notes on these phrases. So in Japan, it can change from very hot to very cold. But how would we go about commenting on this to our friends and Japanese coworkers? So check this sentence out. We have "Kyū ni samuku natte kita." This means it becomes cold suddenly. So let's break this down a little bit. First we have kyuni, which is an adverb that means suddenly. And then following that we have samuku. And this is a modified form of samui, which is an I adjective that means cold. So why is it in that samuku form with that ku on the end? Well, it's because following it we have natte. So samuku natte. And when you have natte, which is the te form of naru, to become, you're saying it becomes cold, right? So it's becoming cold. So you need to change samui to samuku when you follow that with natte or naru. Following this, we have kita. Now, kita is the past tense of kuru, to come. When kuru follows a verb that indicates a change or requires some time to complete it, it is translated as to begin to. So altogether, natte kita means began to become. So if we take this all together, we see that kyū ni samuku natte kita means it has suddenly began to become cold, or it has become cold suddenly. And trust me, if you spend any time in Japan, you will hear samui and atsui very often, because those are very good ways to start conversations in Japan, is to talk about weather. People love talking about weather in Japan, so this is a very good phrase to use. Now this form natte kita, or taking a te form of a verb and putting it with kita, can also be used to express a continuation of an action, as in Nihongo wo benkyou shite kimashita. I have been studying Japanese up to this point. So now let's look at some useful words that you probably have not learned from studying in books. The first one I want to focus on is one that I've actually learned this fall that I had no idea existed, and that is kinmotse. And this means the fragrant smell from osmanthus trees. It's a very sweet aroma, and it occurs at the beginning of fall when these osmanthus trees begin to bloom their beautiful flowers that are a bright orange. And so you can say kinmotse to describe this sweet smell. So if you really wanted to impress your friends, you could say a phrase like kinmotse ga amaku nio, which means the osmanthus smells sweet. So amaku is sweet, it stems from amai, and then nio is smells, or it smells. Now Japan is also very beautiful later in fall, when most of the leaves change color, so many people do momiji-gari, or autumn leaf viewing. So an example phrase that you could use would be something along the lines of momiji-gari ikitai, I want to go autumn leaf viewing. You will often also hear momiji being paired up with spatto, as in Kansai no osusume momiji spatto wa doko desu ka? So that would mean where is a recommended Kansai autumn leaf viewing spot. So where in Kansai can I go see a spot with autumn leaves? Now it's also important to mention that momiji also can have another way to say it, and that is koyo. I'm not actually sure how common one or the other is, but depending on what you pair it with, you might hear koyo or momiji. Now, given that the weather in Japan is very different depending on if you're in the north, south, or center, it's important to track the koyo zenzen, or the progress of autumn leaf colors changing across the country. And it's also important to see where and when the best viewing actually is. Oftentimes you can find a big map that tells you the Toyo Zenzen, or the progress that it's expected to change. Now, with a new season, there are also different flavors and foods that are available. So let's go over some words and phrases for those. One of the more popular ones that you'll see are chestnuts, or kuri. And kuri are very nice to snack on in fall. You can find these lovely little bags, and they have a very unique flavor if you've never tried a Japanese chestnut. Now, another very popular food during this time is satsumaimo, or sweet potato. However, you'll probably often buy them as yakiimo, which are roasted sweet potatoes. And you'll probably buy them from yatai, the food carts or food stalls. There are also a ton of various fruits, fall fruits that are available during this time of year. You have kaki, or persimmon, nashi, or pears, ringo, apples, and also mikan. If you're in Wakayama, that's very big, the mikan or mandarin oranges. Lots of delicious fruits, and especially in Wakayama, if you go for mikans, they're very cheap. You can buy a big bag of mikans, which are so good for a very cheap price. So that will be it for this video, but don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment where you plan to go if you ever visit Japan in the fall. I'd love to know, so leave a comment down below and let me know. Anyway, that'll be it for this video. Bye bye!